Welcome everyone to part 2 of our video on stoichiometry. In this video, we are going to look at how to solve mass-to-mass problems. Specifically, if we are given the mass of one reactant or product, we're going to learn how to solve for an unknown mass of any other of the reactants or products in a chemical reaction. Let's look at the same chemical reaction as we used in the first stoichiometry video, in which nitrogen and hydrogen combine to form NH3, ammonia. Let's imagine we have 10.0 grams of hydrogen gas. What mass of nitrogen gas is required to react with 10 grams of hydrogen gas? Let's switch over to the whiteboard and solve this problem. Here's our equation. Nitrogen and hydrogen react to produce ammonia. And we're given in the equation that we have 10 grams of hydrogen. Now, this is different than what we talked about in the last video. In the first video, we realized that the balanced chemical equation tells us the ratio of molecules or the ratio of moles in which these chemicals react. But I'm given a mass. So we're going to need to take that mass and convert it into something we can use with the balanced chemical equation. Let's go through this step by step. Now, you may have noticed already that this equation looks different, and this is our first step. Every time we do a stoichiometry problem, you need to check that the chemical equation is balanced, and if it's not, you need to balance it. My next step is going to be writing out my givens. And the way I'm going to organize stoichiometry problems is in a very visual way, in that I'm going to list my masses and the information I know about each chemical below that chemical in the chemical equation. So I was given that I have 10.0 grams of hydrogen. Now, I can't do anything with that right now, but I can if I convert it to moles. And we know that the moles of hydrogen is equal to the mass divided by hydrogen's molar mass. Let's recall that the molar mass of hydrogen is equal to 2 times the molar mass of the hydrogen atom, or 2.0 grams per mole. This brings us to one of the first common errors that students make in solving stoichiometry problems. You see the 3 out there and you think, well, there's 3 hydrogens, so I must need to multiply the molar mass of hydrogen by 3. So this is an error because the molar mass is talking about the chemical, not how many we have. Remember, molar masses are fixed quantities. Hydrogen gas, H2, always has a molar mass of 2 grams per mole. We are going to take into account the coefficient shortly. So now let's plug this into the equation. And I know we're used to working up from the top to bottom, but hopefully you'll see why I'm working from bottom to top here. So my mass was 10 grams. And the molar mass is 2.0 grams per mole. I divide those two quantities So we have 5.0 moles of hydrogen. The question asked something about nitrogen gas. So now I'm going to look at the ratio between hydrogen and nitrogen. So do a little arrow here. For every 3 moles of hydrogen, I need 1 mole of nitrogen. So let's just put that ratio right here. Hydrogen and nitrogen react in a 1:3 ratio. Or the moles of nitrogen is going to be equal to the moles of hydrogen, 5 moles, multiplied by the ratio in which they react. And note how I'm turning the ratio into a fraction. The numerator has the moles of the substance which I'm trying to find. The denominator has the moles of the substance which I already have. And the numerical quantities are the coefficients in the chemical equation. A 1:3 ratio. A more intuitive way of talking about this specific reaction is saying that since nitrogen reacts with hydrogen in a 1:3 ratio, I need 3 times as many hydrogen moles as nitrogen moles. So to get the moles of nitrogen, I divide by 3, which is what this operation is doing. Multiplied by 1, divided by 3. So I have my experimental amount, 5 moles of hydrogen, which I calculated here based upon my 10 grams, and I'm multiplying it by the ratio in which the 2 chemicals react. If I have 10 grams of hydrogen, that means I have 5 moles of hydrogen. And since nitrogen reacts with hydrogen in a 1:3 ratio, 5 moles of hydrogen will react with 1.67 moles of nitrogen. Now the question asked me to find mass. So we know mass and moles are related by this equation. So let's rearrange it and solve for mass. Specifically, mass is equal to moles multiplied by molar mass. The mass of nitrogen is going to be equal to 1.67 moles, and nitrogen, N2, has a molar mass of 28.0 grams per mole. So 10 grams of hydrogen will react with 46.67 grams of nitrogen. Let's go through a step-by-step summary of what we just solved on the whiteboard. To solve mass-to-mass stoichiometry problems, our first step is to write out and balance the chemical equation. Before you start doing calculations, identify which substance in the chemical equation you are given information about and which substance you are asked to determine information about. I do that by writing that information directly below that chemical substance in the equation. Your next step is to convert the given mass to moles using the moles is equal to mass over molar mass equation. Remembering that the molar mass is a fixed quantity that you get from the periodic table. You might wonder where step 4 is. It's disappeared. Step 4 or 5, wherever you're at, take that moles that you calculated in the previous step and multiply it by the ratio found in the balanced chemical equation. And there's lots of ratios, but remember, it's the ratio between the two chemicals that you are using. The chemical that you have information about and the chemical that is your unknown quantity. By doing this, you will get the moles needed or the moles produced of the unknown substance. And then finally, since most of these questions want you to find a mass, convert the moles back to mass using the mass is equal to moles times molar mass. Remembering once again that now you're using the molar mass of the unknown substance.